You're crouched in a quiet backyard, hands in the dirt, knowing that what you're growing could decide whether your family eats or starves. You keep your head low because even a harmless-looking garden could make you a target. During World War II, how did ordinary people hide food in plain sight without enemy planes, spies, or even neighbours realising what they were doing? This is the mystery behind the so-called Green Cloak, a gardening trick so subtle it slipped past enemy eyes for years. You're not looking at a battlefield or a bunker here, but at leaves, soil and rows that seem almost accidental. Imagine the tension of planting carrots while bombs fall miles away, knowing discovery could mean confiscation or worse. This wasn't about beauty or yield alone. It was about invisibility. As you stand there in your imagination, you start to feel the fear and the quiet confidence mixed together. The Green Cloak wasn't written in manuals or shouted from posters. It spread in whispers through neighbours, families, and shared survival instincts. And the question hanging in the air is simple. How did something as ordinary as a garden become one of the most effective hidden survival tools of the war? You have to picture the reality of wartime life to understand why this mattered. Food rationing tightened, supply lines broke, and imported goods vanished almost overnight. You couldn't rely on stores, and you couldn't draw attention to yourself by stockpiling. Gardens became lifelines, but visible, orderly plots were risky. They signalled resources, effort, and potential surplus. Imagine walking past houses where neat rows screamed productivity, while rumours spread of authorities or occupying forces seizing crops. You feel the pressure to grow food without looking like you're growing food. This is where daily life became a balancing act between hunger and secrecy. Families learned that survival wasn't just about calories, it was about blending in. Children were taught not to talk about what grew behind the house. Neighbours exchanged tips quietly, often under the guise of casual conversation. The Green Cloak emerged from this lived reality, not from strategy rooms. It was born when someone noticed that messy, mixed planting drew less attention than perfection. When you understand the stakes, you realise this wasn't cleverness for its own sake. It was desperation sharpened into quiet innovation. Imagine this step by step, as if you're doing it yourself. Instead of straight rows, you scatter plants irregularly, mixing vegetables with flowers, herbs and even weeds. This is where it changes. The garden stops looking like a garden and starts looking like neglect. Tall plants break up outlines, ground cover hides soil, and different leaf shapes confuse the eye. You're not hiding food underground, you're hiding it in visual noise. Here's the clever part. Aerial views and quick glances rely on patterns. Break the pattern, and the threat often passes you by. Root vegetables are tucked beneath ornamental plants. Fast-growing greens fill gaps, then disappear when harvested, leaving no obvious holes. Compost is spread unevenly, so the soil never looks freshly worked. To an observer, it's just another patch of green. To you, it's a living pantry. This system didn't require new tools, just a new way of seeing. You start to understand that the Green Cloak wasn't one trick, but a mindset, turning chaos into camouflage through simple, repeatable choices. It worked because it played on human perception. You naturally look for order when you're searching for value. Straight lines, uniform colour, and symmetry signal intention. The Green Cloak erased those signals. You can imagine a pilot scanning below or a patrol walking past, their eyes sliding over what seems unimportant. There's unexpected logic here. Efficiency was sacrificed for survival. Yields were slightly lower, access a bit harder, but safety increased dramatically. Plants also benefited. Mixed planting reduced pests and retained moisture, making the garden more resilient under stress. What began as camouflage turned into a form of natural protection. You start to see how necessity taught people ecological lessons they didn't name, but practiced daily. This wasn't just hiding from enemies, it was cooperating with nature. The garden became quieter, stronger, and less fragile. The brilliance is that nothing about it looked brilliant. That invisibility was the point. When you think about it, the Green Cloak worked precisely because it didn't announce itself as a solution. After the war, the world changed fast. Industrial agriculture promised abundance, order, and control. Manuals favoured neat rows, predictable yields, and visible efficiency. The messy, camouflaged garden felt outdated, even embarrassing. You can imagine people wanting to forget years of fear and scarcity, replacing them with lawns and straight fences. The Green Cloak faded not because it failed, but because it reminded people of a time they wanted to leave behind. Convenience replaced caution. Chemicals replaced diversity. The hidden knowledge survived quietly in a few communities and family traditions, but it wasn't celebrated. Over time, visibility became a virtue again. Showing abundance meant success, not risk. The trick didn't disappear overnight. It just stopped being passed down intentionally. You might even realize your grandparents practiced pieces of it without naming it. History didn't erase the Green Cloak. Comfort did. And with that comfort came vulnerability. The kind you only notice when systems strain again. Now you're back in the present, looking at your own space differently. You might not fear enemy patrols, but you face climate stress, supply shocks, and uncertainty that feels uncomfortably familiar. The Green Cloak matters because it teaches you how to think, not just how to plant. It reminds you that resilience often looks inefficient, and that blending in can be stronger than standing out. Imagine applying this mindset to modern life, from gardens to data, from resources to habits. You don't always need more. Sometimes you need quieter. This forgotten trick isn't about nostalgia. It's about rediscovering a way to design systems that survive pressure without drawing fire. As you reflect on it, you might feel the urge to experiment, to let go of perfection and try controlled chaos. If a simple garden once fooled enemies in wartime, what else could this way of thinking protect today? That question lingers with you long after the leaves stop rustling.